Who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
He hammers down again, and then he hammers down!
But for us, this was just like beating Akron.
We saw a lot happen during the 2020 coaching carousel, and there were a few coaches that I'm honestly surprised were retained by their schools. Because of that, there are a few coaches whose seats are very hot going into the 2021 season, and today I'm going to talk about 10 coaches who could be fired if they do not get together. First, be sure to subscribe if you love college football, support the channel with a like, suggest another topic I should do next, and turn on post notifications. Now let's get started and talk about some 2021 coaches who were on the hot seat, and that'll come up right after the intro.
I've been having hood dreams, ball player, rap star, Billy been taken, BMW, I ain't got no black college dog face. Two twin Glocks to make them shake it like a salt shake. Ain't make it to the league, but I'm still ballin', I was born for this. Never thought I'd see the day when I can make it, should I go legit?
First, we're going to talk about James Franklin. Some people say he is not on the hot seat, but I definitely think he is. It's a very interesting case because last season made things seem a lot worse than they really are. The Nittany Lions had some key players missing for the year, but that is no excuse for what happened, and their talent level is a lot more than the teams they lost to. They got off to an 0-5 start, and fans were calling for James Franklin's head. Luckily, they won their last 4 games and at least went 4-5. They opted out of a bowl game, and James Franklin cooled the flames a bit, and I do think he should have gone to a bowl game and won the bowl game to get to 5-5, but that's just me. They do have young stars like Parker Washington at wide receiver and Kayvon Lee at running back, but I don't think Sean Clifford is the answer, and backup quarterback Will Levis is now transferring. I do think James Franklin is a good football coach because of what he did at Vanderbilt, and he has won a Big Ten championship. But I do think his play calling and player development has been average, and since Joe Moorhead left, it just hasn't been the same, and he is going to have to assemble a really good staff this year and coach at his highest level, or his job may be on the line. I do think his seat is warm, but unless absolute chaos happens next year again, I think he'll at least be around till 2022. This will be tough to do without a quarterback and a lot of youth on the team, so best of luck to Mr. Franklin. The next guy on the list is Jeff Collins. He came to coaching fame when he was at Florida, and after a brief stint at Temple, he was hired to replace Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets are an old-school power program and more recently have been known for their triple option. So, when Jeff Collins came in and said he was going to change the philosophy of the offense and rebrand the program, some were skeptical and most knew he would need some time. Personally, I think he is safe no matter what after this year, but one has to wonder what happens if Georgia Tech looks absolutely terrible and they don't show any improvement in year 3. That is something I'm wondering. With Jeff Sims back at quarterback and both veteran running back Jordan Mason and young star freshman Jahmyr Gibbs back, I think the Yellow Jackets could have one of the best rushing attacks in all of college football, and with Jalen Camp and Malachi Carter as great weapons at wide receiver, they have a chance to get better at the passing game. We need to see a lot more out of that, and the defense needs some major improvement, and the defense has honestly been pretty disappointing so far. I do like Jeff Collins and the culture he is building in Atlanta though, and I'm optimistic for the future, and we all knew it would take time for Georgia Tech to change its philosophy. Dana Holgorsen was a very successful head coach at West Virginia, but after the 2018 season, he decided to pack his bags and head back to Houston to take the Cougars' job. His 2019 season was one of the most dysfunctional years I've ever heard of, as his quarterback ended up redshirting, and he told certain players to sit out for the remainder of the year so they could prepare for 2020, but the Cougars would struggle to a 1-3 record that season, and Derek King basically opted out and then left for Miami. It was all a mess, but it was year 1. In 2020, the Cougars were picked to finish 7th in the American, and they ended up going 3-4 in the regular season. Their losses came to Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Memphis, but they still managed to make a bowl game where they lost to Hawaii. They lost to the 4 best teams on their schedule, and I really think that loss to Hawaii is not the best look, but they need to step it up. Clayton Tune was the new quarterback, and he's a pretty solid player with a good amount of potential, but the inability to put up points and beat a decent team is concerning to me. Dana will at least have this year to show more improvement, but a 3rd straight losing season, and with all the stuff going on, may cause the administration to pull the plug on him if he doesn't show a lot of promise this year. Kansas football is a joke, sadly, and it seems like even the mighty Les Miles can't make the Jayhawks program relevant. In year 1, they put up a fight in the first half with Oklahoma and should have beaten Texas, but all that momentum has seemingly disappeared in 2020. Puka Williams, Andrew Parchment, and Stephon Robinson were a solid core of playmakers for the Jayhawks who all had NFL potential, but the first 2 regressed and Robinson just seemingly disappeared or left the team or something because I cannot find anything on the internet about what happened to him. So if you're a Kansas fan who has any information, I'd like to know. Khalil Herbert left Kansas and became a 1,000-yard rusher at Virginia Tech, and the defense was just terrible for the Jayhawks this year. The quarterback room featured Miles Kendrick, Thomas McVitie, and freshman Jalen Daniels, and none of them were really that good. Jalen Daniels is one of 3 starting Power 5 quarterbacks who came from the state of California, whose name is Jay Daniels, and I found that pretty funny, and he is likely the future guy of Kansas football moving forwards. Les Miles had high praise for him when he was recruited, and he will need Jalen to take a massive step in 2021. Kansas lost every game in 2020 and even got blown out by Baylor, and Baylor was arguably the worst offensive team in all of college football this past year, and they were a dumpster fire as well. I really don't even know where to begin with how to fix Kansas football, and maybe hiring Mike DeBoer to be the new offensive coordinator is a step in the right direction, but if Les Miles and Kansas don't show any improvement in 2021, he may leave or he may just get fired, but I don't know, because who on earth will go there and who will they get that's any better? The one thing that they can hang their hat on is somehow they had the 6th best recruiting class in the Big 12, so some kids are still bought into the long-term plan for Les Miles in Kansas, and I guess that's the solution to their problems. Poor Kansas. Remember when Syracuse was playing toe-to-toe with Clemson, Eric Dungey was one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and Jamal Custis was an electric playmaker? Yeah, I remember those days too. They also won 10 games and played on national television. Sadly, those days seemingly are over, and that feels like a long time ago with how far Syracuse football has fallen off in just 2 years. Dino Babers had one of the best seasons in Syracuse history in 2018, but it has not been anything special since. The hype for the 2019 squad was there with guys like Oklahoma transfer Abdul Adams and 4-star quarterback Tommy DeVito. Plus, they hosted a primetime matchup with Clemson and were picked to go to the ACC championship by some people. Sadly, DeVito was terrible at quarterback, the rest of the team did not gel, and the program fell off and went 5-7. With another year to improve, the quarterback play did not get any better, and Rex Culpepper came in, and they changed around a couple of quarterbacks, and Syracuse football just looked dead in the water. The defense was terrible, he is not recruiting well, and after losing to Liberty, fans and sports writers wanted him gone. Babers' seat is scorching hot right now, and I truly do think he will be fired after this season, and the once promising head coach could be without a job if he does not get things turned around really quickly. As a Purdue fan, I follow the Boilermakers program very closely and witnessed a lot of their marquee wins. Jeff Brohm was one of the hottest coaching names in America for a while, and after his thrashing of number 2 Ohio State and 2 more top 25 wins at home, it felt like he was building a program that could start competing to make the Big Ten championship. Recruiting was up, they had star players, and they were playing on national television all the time. Then they got beat down in one of the worst losses in bowl game history to Auburn in the Music City Bowl, and I think this kind of just sent Brohm into oblivion. The Boilers were hit with a rash of injuries to their star players, and a lot of his recruits were starting to fill in the starting roles, and they were young and inexperienced, so a lot of people gave them a pass. The defense wasn't good, Nick Holt was not a great defensive coordinator, and the offense was just inexperienced. They did have guys like David Bell, Corey Trice, George Karlaftis, and Aiden O'Connell emerge, and it looked like 2020 was going to be a great year for Purdue, and that 2019 was just a rebuild year. They beat a good Iowa team in Week 1, and then barely beat Illinois in Week 2, but they were 2-0 and legit contenders in the Big Ten West. But then everything fell apart, and they didn't win a game for the rest of the year, and they even lost to Rutgers at home. Brohm has had a knack for losing games he should not lose, like Rutgers in year 1, Eastern Michigan in year 2, and Nevada in year 3. The momentum he had on the recruiting trail is now seemingly gone, as their class is 13th out of 14th in the Big Ten. His recruits are not developing into the guys they thought they would be, and the team just seems to lack a lot of passion and good energy. His play calling has become somewhat boring and more predictable, and they don't have a running game at all. He also made the worst defensive coordinator hire in the history of the world in Bob Diaco, and the moment he could fire him, he got him fired. He has the talent and the abilities to be at Purdue for a long time, and the Brohm family is a big deal in West Lafayette, but his seat is warm right now, and he has to prove he is worth the insane contract he has. Boiler up. Memphis football is what it is today, thanks in large part to Justin Fuente's time there, and he was one of the hottest coaching names in the country for quite a while. After Frank Beamer retired, he was expected to keep Virginia Tech football competing and winning 9 to 10 games a year. Instead, besides one good year with Frank's players in 2016, the Hokies have gone 18-17 under Fuente's watch, and they have started to fall off. They lost to Liberty, Old Dominion, got blown out by Duke at home, and ended their win streak over Virginia. And I forgot to mention, they were one score away from losing to Furman at home as well. The 2020 Liberty loss was a low point for the program, as they blocked the Flames' game-winning field goal attempt, but Fuente had called a timeout, and then Liberty re-kicked it and won. That's a tough situation, and I don't know how I feel about that, because most coaches end up icing the kicker, and had he made it, the fans would have been happy he called that timeout. I think Fuente is a decent coach and will take the Hokies to bowl games, but not to the level of success that they wanted to see, and especially with what he is getting paid. Losing Hendon Hooker to Tennessee was tough, and Fuente has to make something big happen in 2021, or he will be gone. Clay Helton is the coach of the USC Trojans, as we all know, and I feel like no coach has gotten more screwed over than him. Every year they constantly want him gone, and he has never really even been given a fair chance by the fan base. He has not produced their standards, I will admit, of course not, but he is not as bad as many think he is. USC may be one of the premier title contenders and the pride and joy of the Pac-12, but they are now mediocre under Helton, and they're not getting to a college football playoff under him. He went 5-7 in 2018, and then 8-4 in 2019, and many thought he would be gone. Yes, USC started out 5-0 this year, but they looked flat and barely won most of those games, and just something was off. Clay is definitely not an awful coach by any means. It seems like his leash is short and he'll never actually get a chance there, unless USC makes it to the college football playoff in 2021, which I don't think will happen, and if that doesn't happen, I think he's gone. Oh boy, now we get to go to the two most talked about coaches whose seats are on fire, and I don't even know if it's possible they could stick around. The first one is none other than Scott Frost. After spending time at Oregon and building UCF into arguably the best Group of 5 program in the country, Scott Frost was seen as the perfect person to turn Nebraska football back around and save them from the mess that was made by Bo Pelini and Mike Riley. Instead, Scott Frost has done nothing but add to the mess for the Husker fans, and I honestly could tell that after he lost his first game to Colorado. The Huskers started at 0-6 in 2018 and definitely got competitive and better by the end of the year. Going into 2019, they had unreal hype because Adrian Martinez was already being given the Heisman Trophy and Wan'Dale Robinson was the next great wide receiver. And also Nebraska was going to win the Big Ten West and compete with Ohio State when they came to town. I mean, to be honest, I bought into the Nebraska hype a bit, and I honestly thought they were going to compete as well, but boy were we all wrong. Instead, they lost to Colorado once again, got humiliated by Ohio State, and Frost began to kind of look like a jerk at times. He made a snarky comment about how he wished he could play more Indiana schools, and then when he got the Hoosiers at home, he lost to them, and they also lost to Purdue, who was basically playing with 22 healthy scholarship players at the time. The icing on the cake came when they lost to Iowa by way of a game-winning field goal to go 5-7 and miss out on another bowl game for a second straight year. 2020 was not much better as they looked bad for most of the season and got dominated by Lovie Smith and Illinois at home. The quarterback play has been beyond terrible. Wan'Dale Robinson thought he would have a better chance of making it to the NFL at Kentucky, and new players are leaving every single day. No offense to Kentucky. At least Mike Riley made a bowl game and made the team somewhat relevant. Sometimes you have to appreciate what you have, and they had winning teams under Pelini, and they had some success under Riley, and they wanted to get the guy who would bring them back to championship caliber, but Frost has not done that. Unless there's a massive turnaround in 2021, the beloved star quarterback from the storied program may become one of the most despised figures in Nebraska football history. Best of luck to Scott Frost this year.
You know the question. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
I had to save the best for last, and you all knew it was coming. Let's talk about the Michigan man himself, Jim Harbaugh. After time at Stanford and the 49ers, Harbaugh was supposed to be a ball and glove fit for Michigan football, and he may have been the most overrated coach in the country. In 2015, they struggled against lesser teams like Minnesota and Indiana and lost a heartbreaker to Michigan State when they lined up in punt formation and blew it. In 2016, they were actually a great team and legit college football playoff contenders, but they blew it on the road to Iowa and lost to Ohio State, and we'll never know if JT Barrett got the first down. 2017 was a down year and non-impressive, and in 2018 it looked bad as well. This is all relative because they still were a 10-win team. They had their redemption tour in 2019, but when it came time to play Ohio State, they lost. Shea Patterson did not really change a whole lot in his time at Michigan, and I wish they would have explored other quarterback options. In 2020, they looked terrible again. Lost to Rocky Lombardi and Michigan State, and then dropped a home game to 0-5 Penn State. They're also one play away from losing to Rutgers, too. The so-called quarterback whisperer has only had one quarterback get drafted, and every big-time quarterback he has gotten has either disappointed or transferred away. Everything is just seemingly becoming a nightmare for Jim Harbaugh, and somehow he was extended after this season. It doesn't make any sense, and there's some sort of trick up the sleeves of the administration. Unless he gets to the Big Ten Championship and beats Ohio State, I don't see any way he's around next year. To save his job, it's going to be an absolute uphill battle, but let's quote Jim Harbaugh himself. Who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
I hope you guys enjoyed today's video about the big-time coaches who are on the hot seat going into the 2021 season, and please let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know which coach you think will be fired first. Before you go, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe if you have not already, suggest another topic I should look at next, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video that grades the 2020 coaching hires. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.